taxpayer who is in California and they want to change their status to a non-resident, essentially the time that they spend in California, it needs to only be for what we call a temporary or transitory purpose. If you want to establish non-residency and change domicile, you need to first of all show that the individual is leaving California without any intention of returning. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean ever returning to the state physically. You may want to come for visits and that sort of thing, but truly living. There's no intention to come back, actually live in California as a resident, so that you have to show the intent. And then obviously the physical move, that's the most obvious, which we show. So it's buying a house and all those, everything that goes with that. And then also if you're at a point where the California Franchise Tax Board is looking at your situation, can you show them that in fact your client is physically outside of California currently, or are they still in the move? So these are things that you just need to kind of walk through and sort of check off on the list. Now, there are some general presumptions, which, again, these are general presumptions. These are the things you would want to discuss, but also these are rules of thumb. This is where we do see some of our clients get into trouble, and I'd say trouble as in too many assumptions about that they've sort of passed the test. There's a general presumption of residency in California if you're in the state for more than 9 months out of the year. Again, that's a general presumption. There's also a general presumption of non-residency if you spend less than 6 months or less. But certainly there are many situations where those are just the general rule, and really maybe there's probably more exceptions than the rule themselves. So there's plenty of situations that we've seen where an individual is in California far less than 6 months, but for all of the reasons, they are definitely a California resident. So again, those are things you need to discuss, in the client situation, but also make sure that you understand those are presumptions, those are starting points. Other items that will be looked at, again, the cars and the voting registration. So any registration that's required in the state, could be property tax, again, it could be car, voting registrations. It's kind of assumed, I would say, that those are going to be taken care of, but don't assume that these things are done. You need to go through the list, make sure these things are checked off. Of course, you want to look at the days spent inside and outside California. You always want to look at that. There's no question that the physical presence is a major consideration. And so the calendar, the travel calendar is very important. Other items like social, religious organizations, places of worship, social clubs, golf courses, that sort of thing. Those are other items that will show that, in fact, if you want to show that this person or maybe this couple has really developed ties in a new state, are they making new friends? Are they making new social contacts? And are they investing in these things? They're not just spending time, but they're actually making real money investment in other type of activity. That's important. You'd also another item to be aware of is why are they moving? Is it really just due to, say, a job or business requirements of being in the new state? So that's another item you'd want to discuss. There are many other factors, as I mentioned, on this, what I call the brag list. There's about 20 items. The last one I want to mention, just because it tends to come up more often than some of the other factors, is banking. And the reason I bring this up, and I think you should be aware of, is what we typically see at the audit level is where an individual is making the argument that they've changed residency, that they've done all the steps. Typically, where they do their banking is not considered that key of a item, to show that they're a non-resident. In other words, if they're trying to show that they moved to Texas, if they show as one of their factors that, well, now they're only banking with a bank, say, in Austin, Texas, and they have no other banking activity, and all their personal or even their business banking is done. That tends to be considered a less important factor to prove non-residency. However, if you reverse that and you take a look at somebody who has very little contact in California, but they happen to do banking with a bank that has a location in California, and say they get a notice, or so maybe they get some literature from that bank, and it has a California address, that often does get picked up, and it is treated as an important factor. So I would say it's not treated the same, for non-residency and residency. So you definitely need to be aware of that. But that would be one not to miss.